Here's welcoming you to the Exchange on this Wednesday, May the 4th, 2011. It is middle of the road, midday week here on the Exchange. Do want to thank our sponsors as today's episode of the Exchange is brought to you by the Ohio Neck and Back Pain Relief Centers, Scott M. Gray, D.C., across from the Marion Center, between TSC and Kroger. For further information, dial 740-386-6580. Night Owl Theater, located on the net at www.fritzlives.com. For further information, email nightowltv@yahoo.com. And by the Bucyrus Placemat Company. To put an ad in, call Wayne Flighter, 419-562-8473, located at 116 Wayne Avenue over in Bucyrus. Catch him on the net at www.bucyrusplacemats.com. And as we do each and every day, at this point in the program, we're going to head over to our good friend Charlie Evers to catch this day in history. Charlie, what happened on the 4th of May?
Well, on this day, Al Capone began serving an 11-year sentence for tax evasion, of all things.
Of all things.
Now, speaking of Bucyrus, Al Capone supposedly visited Bucyrus more than once. In fact, there is a play that's put on at the old Rathskeller, where Capone comes in, his bodyguards stand around with machine guns, and it's quite something.
You know why he went there?
Yes, it was a nice little town.
The bratwurst. He
And
went
it was
for the
kind of out of
bratwurst.
It was on Route 30, and it was out of the way, a small town. Nobody was going to look for Al Capone, but yet during this theater or event at the Rathskeller, they show these men standing by the back door, waiting in case they're raided, to mow down anyone who may want to take Al Capone.
Al Capone was driving down Route 30, and he stopped at a gas station,
Yes.
and he said, "How do I get to Bucky Russ?"
Right.
That's exactly what happened. If you could just replay the tape.
And this is the anniversary, too, of a sad story in Ohio, the Kent State shootings.
Oh.
There were 4 killed and I think 11 injured in that. And in Greensburg, Kansas, some years ago, 11 were killed in a tornado, which is not too unusual. This year, 2011, we've had quite a few tornadoes and a lot of deaths.
Absolutely. It's Kent State. Every time somebody brings that up, boy, what an event that was.
Yes, and the way I look at it, of course, I went all through the Vietnam War era doing news and different things. And there were so many protesters, and if somebody started throwing rocks and bottles at me and taunting me, you kind of gets under your skin real fast.
I think you're right, but to fire on him, of course, I don't know.
Jimmy Rhodes, or James Rhodes, will always remember that case. He's the one that released or told the National Guard to do their thing.
You know, I talked to Governor Gilligan, who turned 90 this year, by the way. Governor Gilligan, good, very nice man. Talked to him one day about that, and he said, more than likely, that's his feeling on that, which was that they shouldn't have done it. Probably broke the Rhodes term at that point. And
There's something else. Jimmy Rhodes, he brought Honda to Marysville. He built a 4-lane highway leading to Honda. He did so many great things, but yet one thing wrong, bang, and that's it.
That's exactly right. Bang, exactly right. We're going to head over, on that note, if you want to have some fun tonight, here's what you do. You turn on a good movie. That's how you forget the troubles of the world, and a guy who knows more about movies than just about anybody else is Fritz the Night Owl with the Flick Pick on this Wednesday. Fritz, follow that.
Thank you, Dave. Well, tonight may be a movie that's kind of tied in with what's happening in the news today, because it's a movie that deals with union management, negotiation, or lack thereof. How do unions get started in a place? The movie is an Academy Award winner, won 2 Oscars. It is called Norma Rae. Won Best Actress Oscar for Sally Field. At the Academy Award, she said, "You like me. You really like me." But anyway, she did a marvelous job in this movie, Norma Rae, from 1979. Also won for Best Song. Was nominated for Best Picture, didn't win, got beat out by Kramer versus Kramer. and was also nominated for Best Screenplay, which was won by Breaking Away. Nonetheless, Norma Rae is a fictional story, but it deals with how it's probably the best union picture made other than On the Waterfront. But it presents the union case quite well. Probably the only flaw in this movie is that the deck is stacked against management in the film. However, the story is fast-moving, suspenseful, well-told. Norma Rae is a lady who has to either grow up and get her maturity and find out what is real in the world and what matters, or she's going to fall by the wayside. She's support. Ron Liebman is excellent as the fast-talking, glib union organizer. Jeff Bridges, always a fine actor, superb as the jealous husband of Norma Rae. And if you look very, very carefully, in the part of the sheriff, it is played by an actor named Greg Walcott. Now, all of you people who are fans of bad movies will remember that Greg Walcott was the star, the lead in Plan 9 from Outer Space, regarded by many as the worst movie ever made, and again, one that I recommend highly. Always a delight to watch that. Another little minor point of local interest is that local newsman Dave Stanton, one-time 10 TV reporter, has a minor role, and talk about stretching your acting ability. Dave stretches to the limit because he plays a TV reporter who does interviews when the big strike and the big union organizing thing is going on at this plant, which is a cotton mill, which somehow management still doesn't believe slavery is over in the way that they treat the workers. As I say, the deck is stacked a bit against management. Their side is never really shown, but it is an excellent film in every respect. From 1979, Norma Rae.
Norma Rae.
79.
I know, what a great film that, boy, a lot of great films this week. Miracle Worker, Norma Rae, Lemon Drop Kid. Hey, that's a good night right there.
And we're working on it.
We're working on it. We're coming along. Got an interesting topic this week. President Obama gave supporters in Chicago a glimpse of insider Washington during a fundraiser recently, casually critiquing House Republicans, government workers, and even the White House telephones. The late-night remarks were accidentally piped back into the White House press room, where a couple of diligent reporters heard them and took notes. There were reports and Twitter updates that showed the president in casual mode, a rare thing to slip through his highly disciplined and scripted operation, says this reporter, not my words. According to a veteran newsman, Mark Knoller of CBS Radio, Obama ridiculed GOP efforts to whittle away at health care reform, this is his quote, by nickel and diming me in the budget. You think we're stupid? Obama said he told the Republicans. Obama appears to have offered a defense of federal workers, saying he thinks they compare favorably to private sector workers, but government employees may find more memorable his description of the exceptions to that rule. He said some government workers are, and this is a direct quote, slugs and not trying to do their jobs, according to the Knoller report. Marianne, left the mic on, shouldn't have done that.
Oh, and that happens to a lot of people. You have to be so careful when you have a microphone wherever you are. It may or may not be on. I don't think that's ever happened to me. I don't think it has anyhow.
Happened to Joe Nuxall a few times. God, he was a good guy though too. I don't know why I went there, but I just went to Joe Nuxall one time
Well,
saying
it just
something
shows
that I
that
can't.
President Obama is human. You know, that's all right.
Okay, but is this news?
No, I don't think it's news.
But it's news.
Yes.
We discussed this earlier on in the week, what's news and what's not.
That's true. But no, it's not news.
Dave? Anchorman.
Well, first of all, the mic is always on. I mean, and Fritz knows that. The mic is always on. And shortly after 2000, with the new technology that we have, I'm part of a consulting company that goes around and helps companies deal with the media and how to hold news conferences and that. And one of our cardinal rules is there's two: never lie, number one, and the mic is always on.
Good
And with,
advice.
and with this wireless technology that we have today, where there's wireless microphones and, a camera can be 50 feet away and pick up sound and all, it makes a difference, I know we had a weatherman at Channel 10 that was wearing a wireless mic once, and after he did his tease, he went to the men's restroom, and I was co-anchoring with Andrea Canburn at the time, and right in the middle of Andrea's sentence, you hear this, somebody. Well, now, I'm not gonna name names because it wouldn't be right. Maybe it wasn't the weatherman, but we only know that the weatherman was the only one at the time, or weather person, I should say. Weather person then had a wireless mic on and probably forgot,
That he had it on.
to turn it on, that he or she forgot, to turn it on. So we always say the mic is always on. Is that news? Yeah, I think it is news. I have to disagree with Mary Ann. I think it is news only because from the standpoint that, if somebody was there and somebody was covering it and they left the mic on, I mean, and some of the guys there, if they didn't want it, you take microphones out of the room, the mic is always on. I mean, it really is. And they have that responsibility, I think, particularly in today's world, where technology just governs everything.
Fritz, it's interesting, I think. I remember a particular slip a few years ago David Brinkley made at he wasn't anchoring, it was long after Huntley Brinkley, but he was still at ABC doing the Sunday morning show, and I think it was Clinton's election. And Clinton got up and gave the acceptance speech. It had been a long night, and David Brinkley said something that he shouldn't have, something to the effect that, boy, Clinton was never going to, we thought he'd never shut up. And this is David Brinkley, who'd been on the air a long time, 50-plus year career. Did you ever say something that you shouldn't have?
Well, when I came up through radio, of course, one of the stories we heard was the Uncle Don story. And Uncle Don's blooper was Uncle Don had a kiddie show, and I believe he would read stories or something. This was like the late 30s or something. Anyway, Uncle Don, as I recall the story, he finishes his thing, thinks the mic is off, and says, "That ought to hold a little bleep for another week." And Uncle Don was summarily crucified in the press. I forget whether he lost his job or not, but it was the Uncle Don story. And that's just been happening in broadcasting over the years. I've been lucky in that some of my saltier comments, there was not a mic around or any internet or some guy with a telephone that could take my picture from 500 yards away to see it. But when we came up through radio, the George Carlin monologue on 7 Things You Can't Say on Radio TV, I mean, that was drilled into us. And as I say, it was a thing that even now, I remember that there was a Lloyd Bridges, he was on acting in a show about the prison camp in the Civil War, I forget the name of it, Andersonville. And and it was a live program called Playhouse 90, I believe. And he's really into the character, and he said hell as part of the thing. It wasn't, anyway, he says hell. I'm the night switchboard operator at Channel 10, and that board lights up like a thing. We didn't pay $800 for television and have Lloyd Bridges come in our house and say hell or damn or whatever it was. So, yeah.
That's just par for the course these days.
Yeah, and this was back in 1954.
the language.
54. Yeah. But like I say, it was so burned into those of us in radio that if we're even close to something like that,
Didn't we
Well,
have
it
an
happened to
incident at WMRN that was really bad?
Well, I'm sure we have. But,
Yes.
now, which one are we talking about?
Charlie's shaking his head.
Charlie, you remember
I
this?
wasn't there at the
No,
time,
you
but
weren't.
I was at a competing station, and I heard about it, and we all roared with laughter.
Well, of course, because we were competitors.
Well, what's the story? Now, what's the story?
I
You can't do that.
I can't remember it
But
either,
it was
but
bad.
it-
It was really
Well,
bad.
what was really bad was it was a comment about a sponsor.
Oh, I
That's
do
right,
remember this.
yes.
Oh, you remember that?
Yes, the
That's
night
it.
they
It
were
was a
recording.
jewelry owner,
Yes, they were.
jewelry store
They
owner.
were recording the spots the night before,
Right.
and they made more than one copy, and one of the copies, they said some things they shouldn't have, and that's the one that played the
Played on the
following
air.
morning.
Yes, it
And
was
that,
really
it
bad.
was riddled with profanity.
And was one of Marion's most outstanding citizens.
Yes.
They were,
Yes, it was, that
Dealing
they were
with.
nailing around there.
Oh, boy.
Somebody had to pay that morning.
yes.
Somebody had to pay the piper. Charlie, that's interesting, though, because you're a veteran broadcaster, and we talked in the first episode of Exchange Club here about your problem pronouncing a dog's name, which could have got you
Yeah,
into trouble. For those who don't remember, it's a short story.
Oh, I was doing that program called Tradio, because the man who normally does it wasn't there, and I always regretted doing that program. I didn't want to do that in the worst way. So here I am reading a card that was sent in, and the listener said, I have a Shih Tzu for sale. Only I didn't quite pronounce it that way. And someone called in right afterwards and says, tell me now, does that dog come with papers?
Now, what does that do to you on air?
Wow.
What did you think?
I just grinned and went on.
But
But I heard about it for years.
Well, I remember one morning I was on the air and the guest said something, and you catch it for that.
I had, of course, I used to take phone calls, and I never, of course, I had no one to intercept the call first. I took them live right off, and some people made some ethnic comments, and I never heard anything about it. And I can't believe, because they were really bad.
Do you know who the Iron Sheik is?
No.
Iron Sheik was a pro wrestler, had a handlebar mustache, looked like Chef Boyardee, totally bald on top. He used to be a bodyguard for the Shah of Iran. He competed in Olympic Games. Very thick Iranian accent. And he was on one morning. He'd come in town and he was on the air with us, and we weren't working on a delay that morning, and we were sitting there with the person, I was sitting with him, and the announcer that morning was one of those 30-year veterans of broadcasting, and he asked him a question, and it was right at the tail end of the interview, and he ripped a word that you shouldn't say, begins with the letter F.
Yes.
He said that word right on the air, and it went right out over the air in that very thick Iranian accent. He'd been on for an hour and a half. Now, I'm panic-stricken at this point. The mic gets shut off immediately. The 30-year broadcaster leans over to me and says, oh, 30 years, my career's going up in smoke. I run out in the lobby to see if the phone's ringing. I run out in the lobby, just so happened a guy's coming in to pick up his prize that he had won for something that morning. And I thought I'd test the water, and I said, were you listening this morning? And he says, well, yeah, I was. And I said, did you hear anything? He said, oh, you mean when he said, and he said it right there? And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, well, that's the first thing I understood him say all morning. So I thought, well, what are you going to do? But President Obama, let's get back to, we took a side boat
Boy,
there.
we did.
We did. But President Obama to say something like slugs and not trying to do their job, do you think this is just casual talk that goes on?
Oh, it goes on all the time, yes, but it's not good for him when somebody else is hearing it, and it's out of context.
Does it hurt him?
Probably.
In trying to make these deals that he's trying to make with...
Well, you can see that he's frustrated, I
Well-
think that's a normal reaction.
He's known as the cool cucumber. How badly does this hurt him?
Oh, I don't know that it hurts really bad.
Dave, do you think it'll take its toll, something like this, or do people go, well, he didn't know it was on?
Oh, no, I think most people today just kind of chalk it off and assume that's really what happens. What will happen is somebody running against him will pick it up and maybe use it in a speech somewhere, and use that, all that kind of stuff goes on. I think the American people are pretty understanding about what really goes on, behind closed doors and some of that situation. That's not. I don't think it's that big a deal myself. I think it's a news story, but I don't think it's, it might be used for a kicker. I would use it for a kicker with my sordid sense of humor, rather than just a news story. But politically, somebody will pick it up. They have hundreds of people, staff members, going through speeches and saying, here, well, let's put that paragraph in. So that'll be part of it.
Dave, you liked the political beat when you were doing
Loved it.
news. Yeah. Why has it ever been more divisive than it is now, and why is it so divisive? Republican, Democrat.
Oh, I think it's more divisive now than it ever has been, and I don't know whether it goes to the fact that we're back to this business of the internet, and so much information gets out. The internet also has created something else in our life which is very dangerous, and that's instant gratification. And if something's not happening right now, and we don't get that done, because, you know, right now you can get on the internet, click, and you see something, and that's it, you know, and information. And now we expect Congress and all this, you know, to get things done in that way. But I had a politician tell me about 4 or 5 years ago, who was a member of Congress, and who was very disturbed and very discouraged that it was so fractionalized in Congress that some members of the other party wouldn't even ride with him up the elevator to the House chambers. I mean, and I'm sure that's an isolated incident, but I'm not so sure the mentality isn't there all the way down the line. Yeah, I think it is very divisive, and I think it becomes, I think one of the things that it causes that divisiveness, if I may say this, and again, this is strictly an opinion, please don't, and but the point is that the way we pick our presidents, our presidential candidates, the party picks them, but in order to get elected, you have to either appeal to the extreme left or you appeal to the extreme right. Therefore, people in this country is basically middle, maybe leaning middle, slightly right. The person in the middle doesn't have a voice. It's the same way, I think Joe Hallett pointed out in his column a couple weeks ago, in the way that they're going to redistrict the congressional districts here in the state of Ohio, and the way they'll do that, it'll kind of end up the same way. Labor will be in a certain part of the state this way, and so again, the middle person, those in the middle of the road, who are huge, and probably really in the majority, and they really are, they're in the majority, and they do not get, you know, they don't get any, they don't really have a voice to say, because the extreme right and the extreme left pick our presidential candidates. Now, the extreme left is mad at Obama right now because of why? Mainly because that he has had to go to the middle, he has had to move to the middle in order to try to get some things done. And so it's made the left wing of the party a little upset with him. Clinton had to do the same thing. He had to go to the middle. But I think the middle needs a voice. We need a bigger voice somehow. And I don't think Tea Party's the answer necessarily. I'm not sure about that. But I think that, so that's what I think has caused the divisiveness more than anything.
Let's head over to the mailbag real quick and wrap this Wednesday up. My 10-month-old son has recently discovered that he has a voice. He sometimes screams when he wants attention or for other reasons. What can I do to stop him from screaming? Rick in Delaware. Mary Ann, what do you do with the screaming kid?
I don't know, I guess you just get him by the shoulders and say, we can't accomplish anything when you're screaming. What do you want? Tell me what you want. Screaming is not the answer. I don't know. I never had that problem, so I think a little shake maybe.
I don't know. I don't know if a 10-month-old understands logic. Charlie, do they?
That's true.
10-month-old?
10-month-old.
Not quite, no. In fact, you have to be 7 years old before you reach the age of reasoning even. So with a 10-month-old, I don't know what you would do.
Just put up with it probably
I guess
for a
so,
while
that's part of growing up.
Yeah.
Dave, any ideas? What do you do with a 10-month-old that has found they have a voice?
Oh, I don't know. I think you kind of gotta put up with them. I think one of the best ways to handle something like that, regardless, is just talk softly with them. I don't know, child whisper type thing to calm them down. 10-month-old is, she's not a year old yet. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, maybe they need to go to a doctor to see if there's something that's clinically wrong. I'm talking about being sick somewhere, or, you know, having something that has pain somewhere, or colic that I mean, I think that should be done. I don't know.
Fritz, what do you think?
Well, we had a son who would scream when we would put him in bed for the night, and it would just drive my wife, you know, bonkers. So we took him to the doctor, you know, to see why this, I mean, loud screaming, and major league screaming. And the doctor said, you know, he examined him, so physically the kid was all right. And he says, you know, when the kid screams, check and make sure that he doesn't need change, if there's not a pin sticking him, and if there's nothing wrong, let him scream, and he may get sick, he may throw up, let him scream, he'll go to sleep. Well, okay, we bring the kid home, and sure enough, that night it's the same thing, and he's screaming, and my wife has practically nailed herself to the chair, and we let the kid scream, and he finally goes to sleep, and that was it. About a week's worth of that, and then pretty soon, when somebody didn't come running because he was screaming, and it sort of sunk in, and he was about 10 months old at that time. It sunk in that no one was gonna come, because he's screaming. He went to sleep like any other kid after about a week of, a very noisy week. But let him scream, and as I say, he did get checked out first, and then after that, when it was okay, let him scream.
We all know how Fritz the Night Owl became a night owl now. We know the answer to that.
Good
If you have a-
advice.
If you have a question for the mailbag, you can send them to us on Facebook under the name The Exchange Marion, or email us at irmcommunication@gmail.com. See you on Thursday.